From his vantage point as Vice President of Transportation of Samba Safety, Steve Bryan has his finger on the pulse of the numbers and data of American trucking. In this time of COVID-19, how has that changed? What has he seen? Be it CSA scores down to the number of inspections. We thought it'd be a great time to ask Steve, see what he has to say, both in terms of the short term and the long term, and this is what he shared with us. Steve, as Transportation Vice President of Samba Safety, you have your finger on the pulse of data for trucking. What have you been seeing since the COVID-19 came into effect?
Yeah, boy, good question. A lot of things. Obviously, we're staying in touch, talking to a lot of customers, and been having ongoing conversations with a lot of partners and even law enforcement and others around the industry. So one of the things that I imagined, and I think we've now confirmed in looking at some recent data, is, as we all went into lockdown and work from home, et cetera, I was pondering what's going on, I wonder, with law enforcement, specifically the roadside inspections that we're all so familiar with in trucking. And, in conversations I had with some of those folks, it was pretty clear that they were, while not stopping, there wasn't a direct kind of a cease and desist order, if you will, to stop doing the roadside inspections. It occurred to me that surely with all the social distancing and everything else that we're all trying to adhere to, I imagine that those roadside inspections, the sheer quantity of them, normal times, tens of thousands per week, would surely be dropping. And we got the latest data from FMCSA just last week, which captured pretty much all of March, and it's more dramatic even than I thought. So we've gone from the high tens of thousands a week down to literally hundreds. So wow. The number of roadside inspections that are being recorded have plummeted to never before seen low levels ever since the roadside inspection was born. So I think a couple of things that I think we want to be very aware of for the industry. This isn't going to last. We simply refuse to acknowledge that this might last. We're coming out of this thing. So I think a couple of things that I've observed, and I think that we will see backed up in the data soon. We all know the CSA program is based on a 24-month look back at the data that comes from those inspections, the violations, the CSA points, all that stuff. So we now have essentially 1 month where that tank was, for all intents and purposes, there were no roadside inspections in the month of March. The numbers are so small they almost are a rounding error. So we have now 23 months of data historically that now inform CSA scores. So if this continues for another month, I don't know what April will look like. I suspect it won't be surging back in April. Hopefully in May it will. So one of the things I think we all need to be aware of is the validity of CSA scores is, shaky at best, given how thin the data can get sometimes on individual motor carriers. I suspect now we're going to see even less robust data for a month or two. So one thing to be aware of, you're going to have to understand, you may see some spikiness up or down. Less data doesn't always mean better scores. It can mean worse scores. So even inspection count can move carriers into different comparison groups, et cetera. So it's going to be some interesting times, a time we all need to be really focused on what's going on with the CSA program. And then part two, I'd say my second kind of observation is this is coming back. And like all things that, drop and then return, whether it's the economy or anything, it's likely to come back with a vengeance. So I think there's going to be a lot of catch up going on. And as we come out of this and start getting back to something that appears to be normal operations, we're going to see a dramatic spike back up in those roadside inspections to previous levels. Our officers will get back to work, and we will, as I heard someone say, we'll make the transition from survival back to safety. So those would be the two things I'm watching very closely right now, Doug.
Steve, you and I are both Springsteen fans, and we know what the police did to Madame Marie for telling fortunes better than they could. But I'll ask you, can you tell us a fortune? What do you think long term on this? How do you think we'll be going on?
Oh, only a true fan would get that reference. That's awesome. Um, yeah, so I don't know if I'm a fortune teller. Again, I try to stay to the data. Um, here's where I think motor carriers need to keep a sharp eye open. Is I think and we've seen it in some of the relaxation of some of the some places you even can. I think some of the states and the FMCSA has even made comments that expiring CDLs have some leniency to them now. So in past times, you did not want to get pulled over with an expired CDL, and now, there's some relaxation of that kind of thing. I think complacency will be our enemy as we come out of this. Things like that, things like the hours of service, permission that has been given in many areas. I think those permissions and the flexibility is going to be snapped back. So we need to get back to business and be very aware of those compliance issues and et cetera when we all get back to normal.
Steve, with regard to the CSA, then the implications of the decrease in the number of inspections, will that have a year-long, 24-month effect, do you think, or how will it come out of it and the impact on the different carriers?
Yeah, I mean, unless we all choose to close our eyes and ignore a few months, which I don't see that happening. I mean, it's baked into the CSA methodology that we look back 24 months for the carrier scores. So, this will be in the system. This is a glitch in the pipeline. Let's call it 1 month, maybe 2, that will exist in that 24-month pipeline for 24 months. So a little example I give sometimes is, back in the early days of CSA, there was this legendary kind of enforcement anomaly that we saw, and everybody came to believe that the state of Louisiana had this incredible focus on seatbelt violations, and everybody believed that. We believed it. Well, once we started peeling that onion back and looking at it, it turned out that the state of Louisiana had received, I don't know, something like $14 million for a click it or ticket program, and that their heightened enforcement on seatbelts had actually taken place over a 3-day weekend at extraordinary levels.
Yeah.
But it painted the state of Louisiana as real tough on seatbelts for 2 years because of that anomaly. So we definitely see things like that stick in the CSA pipeline, so to speak, when you see these anomalies. So yeah, I think it's with us. It'll be with us for 2 years. Again, notwithstanding other things that are going on in the background to continue to reform the CSA program. But as it is today, yeah, it's with us.
Steve, as always, thank you very much and a pleasure.
Okay, great to see you, Doug.
Thank you.